everyone. Can you hear me? It's kind of okay. Oh, thank you. Oh, I didn't know I had a prompter right there. Thank you. Okay, so my name's Lisa Mireille. I work for Albertsons grocery stores. So for those in Chicago, you may know Jewel. We have Acme, Shaw's up in the East Coast. And we also have Vons, Pavilions, Safeway. I mean, the list goes on. And so you're probably wondering, why is a retailer here at a CPG summit? Well, I'm actually in own brands at Albertsons, which is private label, store brands, a knockoff to national brands. But at the end of the day, all of our brands are exclusively and only available in the variety of our Albertsons grocery banner stores. So I work in own brands, and it's 11 private label brands. We span across 450 categories. And we have over 14,000 SKUs. So if you don't shop our stores, but should you shop our stores, you may be familiar with Lucerne. It's heavily in our dairy and cheese. We have Signature Select, which is one of our bigger flagship brands. O Organics, which is a gateway into the produce category, and many more. So out of the 11, I'm here to speak about Soleil and how we sparkled with the Gen Z audience. Okay, so what is Soleil? Soleil is a sparkling water. It's upbeat, it's on trend, it's multi-sensorial. We have 15 flavors, and we're gonna be doing a line extension later this spring. So there's a few samples, please pass along. Also, please look at our packaging, which I'll explain momentarily. So I'm gonna paint a picture for you. So you walk into a grocery store, and have you ever realized the beverage category is literally an entire aisle? Literally an entire aisle. It's not just like a 3-foot schematic, it's literally the entire aisle. So with that said, there's so many options consumers can choose from, right? They can choose from water, bottled water, your soda or your pop, carbonated water, and new age bev, and that's all in that beverage line. So where Soleil plays in is under the carbonated water segment, and we're up against tonic, minerals, seltzer, and then of course sparkling water. So our national brand comparison would be LaCroix, which is why I had to go get Soleil right away because I noticed LaCroix was available. But we also have up against AHA, Waterloo in some regions, and then our other competitor is obviously Coca-Cola's AHA. So, okay, so this past summer we actually did a pretty big brand overhaul, and what we did is we actually tightened our brand positioning. We updated our cans, our packaging, as well as our pack sizes, and a lot of that was just to stay competitive with specifically who? Our Gen Z cohort. They were our prospect targeting, also known as the TikTok generation. So how many of you have been asked to, how can you connect with the TikTok generation? You can raise your hand or just speak, or think inside. Okay, so this past summer, our challenge really was, how do we break through? How does sparkling water or any brand create breakthrough creative? And so raise of hands. So how many of you guys, especially on the brand side, have been asked, how do you cut through the noise? How do you break through clutter? Any hands? How about actually the vendors here? How many of your clients have asked, hey, how can I break through creative? Anybody? Exactly. But let me ask you, why? Why is your starting point always about creating breakthrough, right? Why do we assume that this Gen Z audience actually doesn't want to hear from us? And why do we assume that as marketers, we always have to find new ways to break through? So for our challenge at Soleil is a different approach. And so what we did is we actually, instead of setting out a specific goal to break through, we wanted to actually stop and listen. And with that, we didn't want to try and figure out what messages would work on them. We actually wanted to work with them. So we partnered with a LA agency named Library Collective, and they are phenomenal, and they are actually here with me today. And their whole process is about casting up front. So usually when you have a marketing campaign, you tend to cast towards the end of the process. This is casting up front, working with the co-creators, working with our Gen Z, who is our target audience, way up front in the process. And it was just phenomenal. So with that, we had over 500 participants, and these participants, yes, they were Gen Z cohort, but you described them as they were either like sommelier, they were tastemakers, they were pop culture enthusiasts, They were artists, they were a dancer. And with the 500 participants, our agency was able to narrow it down to our top 12 co-creators, which then help us understand our brand, how we actually want to be authentic. And as Giovanni mentioned from Avocados from Mexico, have a brand that actually has purpose. And so by creating with them, it's kind of like a jam session, I guess. And, it's our director, it's our creative, and you get to start thinking about, diversity of thought. You get to test on and collaborate with them from a copy, from a tone, and just overall any nuances about this audience that we're all trying to unlock and figure out. So we talked to them, about music, trends, their course on the flavors, the designs of Soleil sparkling water. In addition, we had this creative jam session. Whoops, excuse me. And so we talked about advertising, about what brands worked and what brands didn't. We actually dove into deeper conversations, which was more about, their food, their beverage, what their senses are in terms of, the flavors that they were trying, and just being overall able to connect with them. We also asked about food pairings, what they would have on their playlist if they were listening to music. And then it was actually really interesting because we actually knew what was in their fridge. Some had, kimchi, fermented kimchi. Some were plant-based. So you just got to really connect with this Gen Z and work around through their tastes, etc. So when our agency created some ideas, we saw a direct line between, obviously, these co-creators and our target audience, which was the whole goal in itself. So it was the language, it was the tone, the overall approach to social media, the music, the attitude, and obviously the integration of our product. So from this process, we settled on a concept called Vibes. And it was fun, upbeat, it was flexible, it was emotional, it was multi-sensorial, which was all part of our brand personality and ethos. So most importantly, though, this idea came from our exact target audience, from Gen Z. So here's our overall arching quick look and feel. But then also what we did is the content and the language. Whoops, here we go. There we go. Is working hand in hand. And so we had the language and the tone directly lifted from our creative sessions. So you can see, our aesthetic is carbonation core, a flavor that will knock your socks and sandals off, which, by the way, socks and sandals were in over the summer. So there's some more visuals, taste as bold as it looks, pairs well with podcasts and positive affirmations. My favorite one was when, you want to mute the group chat, text, and you're drinking your Soleil, right? So anyhow, and because music and vibes go hand in hand, we worked with our agency to create an original song. So this is from One I Need. Let's see. Does it play? Can you play it a little bit louder? There we go. Thank you. I don't know. Can you hear it? Woo! All right. So, and because music and vibes go hand in hand, we decided to, work with this artist. And it's an original song, and it's listed on our Spotify as our #1. So I kept the packaging purposely, but if you look on the back of our packaging, we have the Spotify barcode for you to, not on the can, but on the packaging. But of course, if you are on Spotify, you can obviously access our playlist as well. All right. So this song became a thread throughout all of our paid media. On Spotify, we had high impact displays. Spotify, you could do video, ads, obviously in connection with the playlist. So it was a very much surround sound approach. And with that said, we also created 15-second originals that would be on TikTok. And with that, we actually partnered with our Library Collective agency again, and they did another round of co-creating and finding the right influencers that were actually authentic and very true to our target audience. And so this, again, is a result of how we collaborated with them. Oops. There we go. Sorry. And they are the ones brands actually told us transitions were really popular over the summer. And so this is just another way for us to, connect with them, to understand, and actually be very authentic and relatable. So with that said, we have results. So there's lots of results, but I can only share, certain information. But what I will tell you is, aside from just sales, penetration, ID sales, volume, you also have to look at your standard KPIs, which I know all of you have shared or know about what that is. But in addition, you also have to look at, your household movement. Do they actually buy another product? Do we capture new or lapsed households? And then, of course, brand equity metrics. So NPS. Did we actually make a satisfaction? Did we improve our metrics from a recommendation and overall satisfaction rates? So what I can say, though, is that we drove positive brand awareness. We had a 74% ad recall. We had a good lift on brand awareness. We definitely succeeded on having a surround sound system, especially working with Spotify. And then TikTok, we definitely delivered on the virality and connecting with this audience, as well as additional earned media. So we had 97 million impressions, but we also are a very small, we have a very small budget, nothing compared to maybe like a Pepsi or a national brand that has a really big budget. In addition, I have 11 brands, so we have to give and choose and be very selectful. So it's really important, like how far can you stretch your dollars? So I don't really look at CPM and stuff like that, because I think you can actually just base that off of how much you have on your budget. So at the end of the day, it really is household metrics. Did we deliver on our overall surround sound objective in driving awareness? And then, of course, any of our NPS scores. So summarized in a different way, we broke through. And it was all because we actually took the time to stop and listen. And so my key takeaway for you guys is, if you actually want to connect with Gen Z, and I know it's a big age gap. There's all the way from like 8-year-olds to college students or 22, but we were obviously targeting the college students. So it's spending less time trying to break through and finding more times to foster and collaborate with them. So thank you. That's what I had.
Number 5. Okay. So awesome, Lisa. Anyone have any questions for Lisa? Which I do, because before you, I just want to ask. I'm just going to jump in, because you're talking about. This was. I know it's launched in influencers, and people think of that as mostly just social, but you really extended this throughout your whole mix. How were you able to leverage different pieces of that? So you were on YouTube, was this, because that can get expensive, every area has its own personality, so
Yep.
how were you able to use all of this?
Yeah, so great question. So we had a variety of media channels or tactics, and a lot of it was just, what was our upper funnel strategy and what was our lower funnel in terms of just driving conversion. But we also know we had to drive some good brand awareness. And so with that said, we just look at our overall target audience, which is very common. But then also, with our influencers, we also wanted to know what other kind of social platforms that they were on. And why we chose like Spotify was because of the Gen Z and their demographics that are on there. Why we chose Snapchat was, again, because of the demographics. Same with TikTok, and same with the high display impact ads, which was predominantly food and beverage, because we're in the grocery industry, so I kind of have to do that.
Lisa, we have a question back here.
Yes, and one
Over
from,
here.
well, okay, you can start, Lee, and then I will run to you.
Thank you so much. This is delicious, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
This
Great.
is great product. Quick question here. So given that you're robust loyalty data and loyalty information, did you guys use the data to execute competitive conquest, or did you use the data to inform your strategy on targeting as well as audiences?
Yeah, so great question. So yes, I would say Albertsons, we're very lucky, especially being in-house. We have so much data. And it's so much to go through, to be quite honest. It can be very overwhelming. But if you have a specific objective, you definitely can do competitive conquesting. And we're actually number 2 in market share, and we're a private label brand. So LaCroix is beating us, but we are number 2. And that's really impressive for a very small brand that we don't have a lot of dollars to put put towards. But we're also very strategic about it because we can target those that came in and purchased a national brand equivalent, and then we can drive that repeat and get that into their purchase behavior. But every category is different, but specifically for sparkling water, we are able to look at competitive conquesting.
We have a question here.
Thank you, thank you. I'm Kristen Hayashi. I'm with the Trade Desk. Thank you so much for that presentation. I was curious, because you're managing across 11 brands, and it sounds like each of those brands are very insight-oriented, and you're starting audience first.
Yep.
So when you think about, being able to test and learn and do some interesting things, specifically with the Gen Z audience with Soleil, what can you then extrapolate as far as like wins or other tactics that you think could be beneficial for across the rest of the portfolio as well?
Yeah, wow, great question. So it's a loaded question, and I don't know if I'll be able to answer you, but we span across 450 categories, so every category is going to be different, especially with the consumer decision tree and their purchase cycle. But I think what is most important for us is to be continuously be target or consumer facing, target audience first, excuse me. But the fact that we have to create loyalty, because you can only get our brands exclusively in our stores, so it's really important for us to build that loyalty. And you're not going to do it through, an ad. Yes, you can drive brand awareness, yes, but I mean, we have 12 different banners, and it's hard to connect that back to our banner. And that's probably one of our biggest challenges right now, because we're not a Target. You can't stamp everything and say only at Target. We have to stamp and be very geo-targeted, very specific. And so we have multiple versions. But I think overall, across portfolio, is just driving that loyalty. So hopefully that answered your question.
Is this on? Any more questions? Okay.
No. You always have a question.
There's so much of knowledge in this room. It's tough not to take advantage of that. I'm sorry. Lisa, I have a question more so, not as much marketing, but more branding. So, for example, for private label, it's interesting that Albertsons AFA kind of has numerous brands, because if you look at Costco, they do Kirkland, Bowl and Basket for Wakefern, Great Value for Walmart. How and why is this working for you all? And why the different direction?
So how is what working for us? I'm sorry?
Just different brands in the private label, own brand perspective, whereas looks like, if I'm not mistaken, competitors just have one brand, and that master probably drives additional benefit from an awareness perspective.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say, trust me, I would love to just have one brand. I would love to have one brand. But we have different brands because of the shopper base that comes to our stores. So we have a brand like O Organics, for instance, that is heavily, organic, and it can be relatable. We have our flagship brand, Signature Select, which is across every single category. But the reason why we have various brands is either because of the entry point that they're coming into the category, and also depending on how loyal we are. So for this particular brand, it's been around, but the package relift was definitely a big shift for us. But also in grocery or in any retailer, it's very common to have multiple brands. So at Target, they have Good and Gather, they have Up and Up, they have their favorite day that they just launched. And so it's very common, it's probably easier to produce products in-house versus, like a national brand. It's a lot quicker, I should say, because our speed to market is probably about 22 weeks, so we can get things on shelf pretty quick. Where other CPGs, may take them a little bit longer. But I think overall, like having that niche in your portfolio, it's okay as long as you identify the architecture of the brand and what its role is for.
Anyone else? Oh, that was out. Okay.
Thank you. Lisa, that was great, and the product is terrific. So, love the blood orange.
Okay. That's our number one.
Oh, well, there you go. The social part is really interesting. Do you do any other media that's outside of the Albertsons' own media as far as display?
Outside of Albertsons' own media. Can you elaborate what do you mean by that? Just so I...
just other display, so running within apps or running within other content on the Food Network, for example, other places that you run?
Okay, yes, thank you. Thank you for clarifying. So yes, we do. So we, Own Brands has a marketing budget. Yeah, it's small, but we have a marketing budget. And so we're very thoughtful of what channels we should be on. But of course, we're also on Albertsons' own channels, which would be on our e-commerce landing page. We do have to get our fair share because we operate kind of differently within the company. But definitely in other channels, if it makes sense, depending on our objective, and then of course who we're going to reach out to. But I would say when we do a lot of programmatic buying, we look at the lifestyle of the shopper for that brand. So my Soleil may be very, very different than my Signature Select brand.
Good, thank
So
you.
the channel, so the content may be different, yes.
That's cool. Okay, great. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much, Lisa.